So I'm glad to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Philly Code Camp. I I tweeted this morning that, hey, Philly Code Camp is happening, but I think I sent the link to 2021 Philly Code Camp, which I don't think we want to relive some of these years, but I'm glad to be here. So we have like 55 minutes, which is not a lot of time, and I don't know anything about like how much you folks are, tinkering with or, looking forward to .NET MAUI. So I'm going to start with some slides, but they really are not important. I'm going to try to maybe breeze through them in like 10 minutes and maybe try to show you as many things as I can. And we're on Teams here, and we're all friends. So, please feel free at any time, turn on your camera, your microphone, ask me a question, interrupt me anytime. That's totally cool. Okay, glad to be here. I have known Bill and Chris and those folks for many, many years. I am Sam Basu. I am a dev advocate for Progress Software. Hopefully you know us for some of the things we make to make developers a little bit more successful. Your Telerik and your Fiddler, Kendo UI and all the things. That's me pretty much everywhere online, the socials. So that's how you can get hold of me after this. So let's start, and we're going to talk about migration and some modernization strategies. How does Blazor, how does .NET MAUI kind of play into this? What do you do if you have an existing app right now with maybe Xamarin.Forms? Maybe you're trying to move to MAUI. Maybe you have existing WinForms or WPF apps, and you're trying to move over. Maybe you have investments in JavaScript, and you're considering what the path forward looks like. So let's talk about all of those things. But first up, we are still living through a pandemic, hopefully, looking out towards the end of the tunnel now, but there is unrest in Eastern Europe. I have lots of, friends and family for whom, the military conflict in Ukraine hits very close to home. So I hope if you have the same, they're safe, and, hopefully humanity prevails sooner than later. So .NET. So why are we talking about modernization? I'm sure you have seen this slide from Microsoft. The whole idea of what .NET MAUI is doing and Blazor is doing, it kind of rides on this entirely, .NET 6, and it's the latest production ready version of .NET and came out November. .NET 7 is actually also in the works now. Preview 2 is coming out in a few weeks. That's coming out in November of this year. But .NET 6 carries with it a small badge called LTS, which is long-term support, and that means that enterprises have a little bit more confidence to upgrade their runtimes, move their apps over to .NET 6. So a lot of our customers, a lot of Microsoft customers, and maybe a lot of you who maintain apps, you're thinking about migration or modernization. So that's what we stand on. Everything we talk about is going to be on .NET 6, and the deal, like it's for every platform. The tools are cross-platform, and everything is good. What I want to break this down is into three things. And sure, you could be building IoT or cloud, but those are kind of edge cases. I'm considering like the core of what enterprise apps are. It's mobile, it's web, or desktop, right? So what are your options, going forward if you are doing any of that? So for mobile, again, you have a lot of choice, which is a good thing. You can be building truly native apps, but it's expensive, as we know. 3 different code bases and platforms to support. If you're doing anything web, keep doing web. You have a lot of ammunition to do things right. You can, start with the lowest hanging fruit, that's mobile web. You have lots of frameworks that help you out, Angular, Vue, Bootstrap, and Kendo UI, and all those things. You can make things a progressive web app, which is a nicer experience on, native devices. But again, you can also be making cross-platform native apps with JavaScript. That's also possible with things like NativeScript or React Native. So you have choices. And if you want to write like higher level languages and compile them down, then Xamarin, Uno platform, Flutter, these things are kind of your options. Excuse me. And .NET MAUI kind of fits in that boat a little bit as well. So again, a lot of choices. Let's talk a little bit about .NET MAUI in particular, because this kind of started with Xamarin, which is like 7-8 years old now. Xamarin.Forms in particular. Again, it makes it really easy for .NET devs. Nothing new. for writing native cross-platform apps. But this is kind of where Xamarin had started. You started writing some, say, shared C# logic, and then you wrote the platform heads separately. A lot of people ask if this is going away. No, it's actually part of .NET 6 now. This is just called .NET for iOS, .NET for Android. Nothing has changed. Excuse me. Essentially, you have to write the platform heads separately. So not as ideal, but you can still do that. It's baked into .NET 6 now. Xamarin.Forms is the thing that we have had, for the last, again, 6-7 years, and it's been very popular for, a niche section of .NET developers who want to write cross-platform apps. We are writing shared UI code here, and again, that gives us an abstraction over not knowing all of the things in iOS or Android. And this is the part that's your present reality right now. And this is the part that's evolving into .NET MAUI, because there are actually some pain points with Xamarin.Forms, and I can walk you through a little bit of that. When you start, shipping production-ready apps to your enterprise or to the app stores, there are some things that are a little painful. Projects and solutions get really, very big and messy to maintain. NuGet dependencies, native dependencies are sometimes harder. So they're just trying to address all of these things in one go with .NET MAUI. So you may have seen this slide. It's from last November. It's not early next year. It's actually this year. Q2 of this year is when .NET MAUI comes out. So .NET MAUI stands for Multi-Platform App UI. It's the P is conveniently silent because it's so much easier to say MAUI than MPAUI, right? But it's essentially Xamarin.Forms with a whole bunch of added things. So iOS and Android are given, but we are now bringing in desktop. So Windows and Mac are now welcome, which is a big deal because for the first time, you're doing mobile and desktop from the same .NET code base. The good thing is they're not reinventing anything new. Windows, we get to it through WinUI 3, which is the latest UI UX stack. And Mac, we get to it through something called Mac Catalyst, which is Apple's way of running iPad apps on the Mac. So that's what MAUI is doing. If you are doing desktop, and again, if you're old like me, then this doesn't look scary, but I can understand why for a lot of people this is just like too much choice, because we're sitting on like 25 years of doing desktop dev, right? So you can do native Windows dev, you got your WinForms, WPF, UWP, WinUI 3, all of those are good. Again, don't let people tell you that WinForms and WPF are dying, because they're not. As we'll see, you can actually run those things very nicely on .NET 6. And then you can bring in like little islands of modernness. If you want to do web, you sure can. You can do PWAs, you can do Electron, and you got a few other choices here. But .NET MAUI empowers you to bring it to Windows with WinUI, and Blazor kind of plays into that as well. Similar story on Mac. Again, you can do web stuff, or you can do native cross-platform stuff. And again, .NET MAUI and Blazor also kind of play heavily into it. And again, for the 4 of you who want to run Linux as desktop, you got some choices as well. Actually, I joke, but Linux has very real business cases for running it as desktop. It's not just a very niche audience. So again, lots of options for you. Now, if you want to write web apps, right, go write your web apps however you want. Now, what I think has happened is in the last 15 years. We have always had ASP.NET for .NET devs, but it's mostly a server-side tech. And yes, you can do AJAX calls and make modern apps with web forms, but they don't scale as well as JavaScript does. So if you wanted to build a modern web front end, you chose JavaScript and any of the SPA frameworks until you had Blazor, because now Blazor can run both server-side and client-side. So it's obviously exciting. So Blazor, if you're running entirely client-side, then you're using WebAssembly and you're shipping .NET DLLs and everything is good. Server-side also has very good use cases for line of business apps. But if you are doing Blazor, then that's also very welcome now on mobile and desktop. PWAs, Electron, that all works. And .NET MAUI actually embraces Blazor big time as well. And if you're doing JavaScript, that's welcome too. So what else? Oh, this is the thing that I talked about with .NET MAUI. It's called hybrid Blazor apps, or .NET MAUI Blazor apps. Essentially, it's a shim. So this is actually very different from Electron, which is shipping with Node.js and Chromium. This is shipping with just a simple web view. It's an abstraction that knows how to render the right web view for whichever platform that you're running on. So Blazor and really any type of web stuff is quite welcome on .NET MAUI. If you have, again, I think this is actually the reality for a lot of .NET shops where, you started out doing ASP.NET, but then you realized you had to do JavaScript, so you kind of relegated .NET to the backend as an API, and then that's fine. But if you have web API projects now, which are, serving up client-side apps for desktop, mobile, or web, see if you can run them on .NET 6, because you're going to get immediate performance benefits. If you are writing something from scratch, again, they're not forcing you into this, but this is absolutely an option. They're trying to lower the barrier to entry. So there's a lot of drama sometimes with .NET projects to even get like a hello world app up. This is 3 lines of code, literally, to spin up an API that can serve up, any type of data to any type of app. So take a look at minimal apps if that's your thing. But again, if you have an existing API project, it's easy to, migrate that over. So let's talk about modernization a little bit. Everything that you see here on the left is what you might be considering moving over if you are interested with .NET 6 and MAUI and Blazor, right? So you might have WinForms, WPF, or UWP. You might have Xamarin.Forms. And again, a lot of questions is, should we wait for .NET MAUI? No, you can start with Xamarin.Forms right now. That migration is going to be super easy. And if you have any JavaScript, that's welcome too. So again, this is not an exhaustive list, but if you're running things on .NET Framework, your house is not on fire, but it is kind of like, if anybody has, you folks, some of you folks are from Philly, so it's kind of like the rent control situation in, New York City. Sometimes you have residents who can't leave, like developers, but they're not essentially happy. So, give them a new carpet, that's a new runtime. Give them a little island on their kitchen that runs, XAML Islands or Blazor or .NET MAUI. So modernize what they're running on. So desktop, mobile, you understand the options for web. If you can jump over to Blazor, by all means do, but that may be a bigger jump. So consider MVC or Razor first. And again, JavaScript and .NET can actually talk to each other if you want to mix and match. So you have a lot of choices. So let's look at some stuff. Any questions? I think I did like 12 minutes of slides. Any questions, folks? Are we good? Are you awake? I've had 2 cups of coffee. I am awake. Okay. So again, I don't know, you don't want to see my inbox, I'm pretty sure. If you haven't, started playing around with this, here's where you can start. This is .NET MAUI, right? So these are the docs, and it's in the works a little bit, but they've been adding a lot of things. So right now, .NET MAUI is at preview 13. Preview 14 is coming out, hopefully next week. And you're going to see, RC bits starting to come out, release candidate, and then GA, hopefully sometime in early Q2. So this is kind of your way to start. And let me point out a couple of, things that are different up front. So again, this is where they start. When you talk about supported platforms, you got those things and Tizen. If you're running like a Samsung TV or a fridge, you can run .NET MAUI on it. Linux is not on the roadmap because, again, even for Microsoft and their engineering efforts, engineering is expensive and they have to go for mass first. And Linux is likely going to be community supported, but maybe next year. But if you look at the getting started experience, they talk about, all things Windows and Visual Studio, and that's the best experience. While I'm on a Mac today, I will show you Windows, but again, stuff works on a Mac as well. Since the experience and the tooling is not the best, they don't talk about it. But for you to get started, get Visual Studio, get the mobile workload, and then .NET MAUI is a checkbox, and then you can see the templates show up. But everything works on command line as well. So let me actually start you off with the present. Okay, this is Xamarin.Forms. What is what I have open, and let me know at any time if you want me to make things a little bigger or smaller. So this is classic Xamarin.Forms. You have a .NET standard library, right, which is shared, and then for each project you have iOS, Android, Windows. I don't have any other projects here, but every project is a solution, or every platform is a project, right? So which in itself is a bit of a pain because you have to put those icons and splash screens into every project. Your NuGet packages need to be referenced on every project, and it just kind of grows and grows, and it becomes like a harder to maintain thing. So they're trying to address that actually. But here's one key difference between Xamarin.Forms and .NET MAUI. So every app kind of starts out with a bunch of pages. So app.xaml.cs, this is again XAML and C# is what I'm showing you. You can actually do everything in C# if that's what you want to do, but XAML is what most people do if they're doing Xamarin.Forms. So our app starts up with main page. And if you look at main page here, I got some XAML here, and I got some labels and stuff like that. And then I have this thing called entry, which is essentially a text box. So by default, when you have an abstraction like this, when you look at a label or an entry or a dropdown, at runtime, it's going to turn around and render the native entry or native label on iOS, Android, Windows, and everywhere else that you're running. There's a little bit of piece of code in there called renderer, which knows how to render the corresponding native UI. And you can actually customize that. So what I have here is a custom entry class, which is in my shared library. And I'm just changing the entry background to light green, because like, why would you not want to have a green text box, right? So let's go ahead and run this. And this is, again, what you can do right now. So I think I had my simulator running, or maybe not. Maybe it's redeploying, or maybe it's done. OK, so this is running on iPhone 13 Pro. So it went and talked to Xcode, came back. So here's my regular entry, right? And here's my custom entry, which is in green. So this is OK. But then you can actually do a little bit more. I have another class here, which is actually sitting in my iOS project. And I'm going to open this up, this line of code here. And what I'm trying to say is only if you're running on iOS, not for Android. Everybody else gets the green text box, but only if you're running on Android, I want to actually customize the entry renderer a little bit more. And I want to choose another background, which I actually don't know what that UI color is, but let's run it. So we fire this up again, and it's going to spin up the app and pull up on my simulator. Oh, it's like light purple, right? So you understand how we customize things. So this is what the present reality looks like today. Now, this is fine, right? And in fact, for something as simple as customizing a small thing in your entry, you don't need a renderer. This is called a custom renderer. You can actually do away with something called effects in Xamarin.Forms. But for anything complex, you are looking to write a renderer. And this gets to be a little bit of a pain to write, because again, coming from the Telerik backgrounds, we write a lot of these custom renderers, and they're not fun because you need to know exactly what you're doing on the native stack. And this line of code here is actually a bit of a problem, because it's a declaration that says, hey, like assembly scanning is what it needs to do to figure out that just for iOS, I need you to render this piece of code and not for any other platform. So while this is something you can do, it's not ideal for performance. So let's take a look at what that experience looks like on MAUI. Okay, I'm going to close down a couple of things here, and I am going to bring up my terminal, because everything is in terminal. So if I do a .NET version, you can see that I'm running .NET 6 0200, right? So let me take you to a place where I keep all my stuff, and these are some of the projects I will show you. So let's look at MAUI customization, because we talked about some of the customization stuff. Customization, and I have VS Code in my path, so I can just pull this up. By the way, on Mac, the tooling is catching up, so you don't have a lot of IntelliSense, and command line is integrated in terminal in VS Code, so you can do that. But VS for Mac is kind of going through a big, revival. So that tooling is catching up. So let me run this on, let's run this on an iOS device for a second, actually. So I'm going to pull up my cheat sheet of commands, because I keep forgetting them. So let's do iOS build. So notice how we are doing a .NET build, but it's a multi-targeted app. So I'm saying go do a build for iOS, and I'll show you what that essentially does. So let's go back to our code while it's doing that, and copy some of this down, close this down. So if you have Xamarin.Forms apps today, this is what your migration looks like, and it's not bad at all. So up front, you'll notice that there are some differences. This is now a .NET MAUI project, and it, hold on, is the simulator coming up? Oh, so by default, it starts up with the, the iPad simulator, which you can change. So I have my green text box again, which is great. One thing to note here is the solution is one project now. It's truly a single project. And if you look at the CS project, it's got some target frameworks here, so you can alternate which builds you want, but it's got some shared things as well. So CS project is nice and clean, and they're going to clean this up more. It's SDK style. But one thing to note here is everything here in platforms, that's just all a folder. So you do have iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac, but they're just folders. And it shares, starts out sharing some fonts and images, and it's got like an image resizer built in. So I can grab my splash screen and it can resize the density of the image for iOS, Android, and so on. It's a starting point. I'm not saying it's going to do it for everything perfectly, but it's a start. So you can consider keeping things shared, and then only keep platform-specific things in those folders when you need them. And the build is going to be smart enough to realize that you're doing a Mac build, so it only grabs from Mac and so on. If you look at MAUI program.cs, this is kind of where it starts out. Now it's using the .NET generic host builder, so which is nice, and everything starts up here. You can do dependency injection, but here's the green text box again. So in my app.xamarin.cs, I can I can do if-else logic, so only for iOS, and you can do it for everything if you want, but only for iOS. Notice how easy it is for me to jump into UIKit, which is the UI framework for iOS, and I'm just saying mark it green. So that's how I get a green text box for iOS. Now there is one more way, and in my XAML, all I have is just an entry. Now in my MAUI program.cs, I can actually now open up this one line of code. So what I'm saying is .NET MAUI uses a different way of doing things, and I think that is, there was a picture in there I'm trying to find. Customize. Yeah, so this is what I was trying to find. So in .NET MAUI, they have a bit of a separation. It's not a renderer, it's called the handler, and it's an interface. So they're separating the UI, which is, .NET MAUI, from the actual mapping of the controls, which rendered the UI button or the app compat button and so on. So F# can come and use it. C# with an MVU pattern can come and use it. So they're just trying to break that hard-coded link. So here I can say, if you have Xamarin.Forms apps today, and let's say you have built yourself a custom renderer, you don't need to throw it away. You can actually use it in MAUI as well. So here what I'm saying in my program is don't use the handler. Only for iOS, go back and use the entry renderer that you have in Xamarin.Forms built in. So with that, I can go back in and I can do another iOS build. And you will see as soon as it comes back, 10:23 a.m. Okay, I got until 10:55. We got some time. And I'm not looking at chat. I do have it open. So if you have a question, fire away in chat or, interrupt me anytime. I think it's running. Oh, no, it's starting to come up. So what I'm trying to say is if you have a Xamarin.Forms app today, you are going to have a few tools at your disposal. In particular, this thing called the .NET upgrade. Oh, and similar comes up while I was typing. We'll give it a second to spin up. Upgrade Assistant. This thing is nice. It's squarely meant for desktop stuff right now. It's a command line tool. So if you point it to a WPF or a WinForms project, it's going to update the runtime to .NET 6. It's going to transfer it over to an SDK style project, and things are nice. But this is the one that they're actually working on to make sure that it can actually move from Xamarin.Forms to .NET MAUI. So it's going to change all your namespaces, give you a single project, and try to get you to a starting point. So this is what you will use to migrate things over. And the app came up, and now you see that it's white because it's just using the Xamarin.Forms renderer. So you absolutely can use renderers. Okay. Let's talk about Blazor because that's exciting, right? A lot of you want to do Blazor. So let's back up. No, actually, I do want to talk about APIs real quick, and then we'll kind of talk about Blazor altogether. So let's look at this real quick. So I have a minimal API project, and again, you don't have to use it, but let me do this. Actually, if I do a .NET new, I think it's --list, or yeah. So these are all the templates that I have, right? Same as you get in File New Project in Visual Studio. So all of your iOS stuff is right here. You can do WPF, you can do Android, all of your Blazor and ASP.NET stuff is here. These are all of my MAUI templates, by the way, which you may not see all of them if you don't have some of the previews installed. But the top three are what you need: MAUI, Blazor, and just a library. If you look at ASP.NET here, if you do the ASP.NET New Web, this is the project that you get that I'm showing you. If you do a web API, then you get the full CRUD operations and the controllers that are wired up to create, read, update, and delete. So no one's forcing you into this, but you do get the advantage of C#10 and all of the the shortcuts that you benefit from. Oh, and looks like my VS Code updated. Thank you for that. If you look at the CS proj here, so why is this expanded? Okay, so look how simple it is. Just .NET 6 and implicit usings is enabled. So what that means is it's using global usings. It's using file scope namespaces. So if I look at my program.cs, it doesn't have any using files. And since it's all one namespace, I don't even declare a new namespace, but I will show you, you can have your own namespace on a per file basis. So it saves like one level of indentation. So this is how it is to spin up a API builder, and this is for serving up HTML, so you don't need explicitly lead that. So builder.build, and then you get these map map for get, map for post, and delete. It's pretty simple. So just whack maps to just a string, whack person maps to Elon Musk or whoever it is that you want to do's, and mapping to post. It's just so easy. So if I run this thing now, so let's do a .NET run. You will see that it's up and running on localhost 7197. So let's go to localhost 7197, hello world. That's how easy it is. And I can go to that person or any other namespace, and it spits back JSON. I can bring back some HTML as well. I think what was the thing? The HTML was, what was it called? Oh, it was called some page. Okay. So let's go to some page. Yeah, so that's HTML. So you can bring back JSON or HTML. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a web API project today, make sure you can upgrade to .NET 6 because you're going to gain from performance. But minimal APIs makes it super easy to kind of get an easier starting point. Now let's look at let's keep that minimal API working or running, and we can look at one more project here with Blazor. So let's go in here. I think it's called MAUI Blazor. Yeah. So we're going to open up that project and actually run this in, maybe let's do a Mac Catalyst build, right? Because now we're running on a Mac. So let's do a Mac Catalyst build, and this is a MAUI Blazor project, right? So you will see it running in a second. So now you get a true desktop application, same exact code. I can build this for iOS, I can build this for Android as well. But what you see here, if you've done any Blazor, this looks familiar because it is the Blazor template. This is actually what you're seeing here in this little view is them just taking away all XAML. If you don't want to do XAML, you don't need to see XAML at all. So in this project, you start up as you do, but in MAUI program you register the web view, and then you add that as as a service. And if you look at your main page, it starts out as a XAML content page, and you can add some native elements in here, which I'll show you in a second, but you can choose not to. So in that case, every part of your UI is entirely Blazor or this web view. So this Blazor web view is the thing that does some of the magic, because it renders the right web view, be it on Mac or iOS or Android or Windows. It just knows how to render the right web view. And it's pointing to one, like a local component here, which is the main.razor, which eventually comes down to all of the pages. These are all, this index.razor page is what you're seeing when the app runs. That's the Blazor page, right? So counter and everything is just the same. Now, if I make a call out to API, and that did not work. So let's actually change it, because I was tinkering with this yesterday with an ngrok. So let's just do a localhost. And I think we had it at 7197 and person, I think. Let's copy this to make sure our API is still running. And go over to the browser. Yep, I get Elon Musk here, so let's fire up another build. because I changed the URL to something other than localhost. Just give it a second. 10:30. I got 25 minutes left. We're good. Sorry about talking so fast. I'm trying to show you as many things as I know or I find exciting. And I will get to Windows stuff in just a second. Are you running? No, not yet. So one thing to note here is if this does work, let's see, it is up and running again, API. Okay, there you go. So you see the Elon Musk come back. Now, one thing to note here is I am directly, making a call out to my local host. And if I tried running this code on iOS or Android, it's going to fail because, those are VMs and it's not going to know what localhost is. And then you have to, do the 127.wag or whatever to point back to localhost on your machine. But, minimal APIs can be called from any app, right? So web, desktop, mobile, it doesn't care. And you can actually do, very web thingies in here as well. So here's a little chat room for like real-time apps. I have a little thing that's up and running on Azure. It's a little simple hello world like chat application, real-time chat application, and I can point to that service and talk to it over real time. So here's my web, saying hi, send, and that's real time, right? And I can come back down here into my Blazor app, and now from desktop, which is a Mac, I can go in here and I can say, Philly says hello and do a send. You can see it's immediate, right? So now you got Mac, desktop, and I'll show you this from Windows as well, talking to some client backend. So that all works, and the reason is I can just write straight up JavaScript or C# code in here. This is bringing in the SignalR client library as a NuGet package, and it's got some HTML. At the end of the day, it does a hub connection link to that same web URI, and then it receives messages or sends messages. That's as simple as it is. Now, if you are doing Blazor though, you might be wondering like, what else can I do with Blazor? Can I do some native stuff with Blazor? Because this is all inside of a web view. So the answer is yes, you can. So let's go back up here. And I'm going to forget, what is it called? It's called, native Blazor. Let's look at MAUI native Blazor. Okay. And let's do the same thing, code. And I might do an iOS build actually to show you some, native integrations. Where's my iOS build? iOS, Mac Catalyst. Come on. There you go, iOS build of this. So what exactly is going on here? It is still a Blazor MAUI project, but this one is actually trying to use some native stuff. And you can actually, and this is the benefit, Blazor and .NET MAUI run on the same runtime. That's .NET 6. So, and they're both .NET, so they can talk to each other very, very easily. And from Blazor, you can actually request any number of like native APIs. From Blazor. So again, same Blazor app, but if I hit this button here, invoke native APIs, you see that it's showing me the app name. It's showing me that I'm running on portrait mode. This is my resolution. This is my device type, and I happen to be on Wi-Fi. So I'm reading network as well. And let's see if I can do this. I only have it on the button click event handler, so it doesn't update. But I can hit it again, and now it says, "Hey, I'm on landscape," and then so on. So one other thing is when you do the fetch data, Blazor has that weather service thing, which is kind of faked out. But it would be nice if you're running on a device to actually get the user's geolocation. So if I hit fetch data, I think I have it wired up on the fetch. Okay, there it is. So I'm trying to read the location here from Blazor code, and you get the classic iOS warning to say, hey, somebody's trying to read your thing, and Android is going to give you the same thing. So I can allow it once, and I get a geolocation that I think is like, Apple headquarters, but you read geolocation right there. So what happened exactly? So in here, you'll notice that this is my index.razor page, and all I have to do is bring in this namespace, which is actually included by default. They do some tree shaking if you're not using it, but you can bring in MAUI Essentials, which is a set of libraries in C# that gives you access to all of the native APIs, like 36 or so native APIs. So I can read the app info, I can read the device orientation, I can read the device width and height, and I can read network access. So that's how I know that I'm on Wi-Fi. And then then on info plist, I have, one little key here for iOS to say, hey, I'm going to use your location. Don't say I'll misuse it. For Android, you're going to put it on, your Android manifest XML. And then in my fetch data, I can just, bring in the same MAUI essentials, and I can just do geolocation, get last known location. That's how simple it is. So straight up web Blazor code can, do all things of all native things on iOS or Android, which is nice. Now, before I switch to Mac, I do want to show you a couple more things for those of you who are considering doing or who have done JavaScript. What about Angular? What about React? What about Vue? If you have front ends in any of those, what happens? Can they run on desktop in any way? And the answer is yes. So let me go to let's do Angular first. MAUI Angular, okay? And I'm going to do a Mac Catalyst build. So let's grab Mac Catalyst here and do that. So Mac Catalyst build, but I will show you what's in that project real quick. So if any of you do Angular, this will feel very familiar because this is the Angular CLI, right? So if you have to do like, ng new, and you build up a CLI app and then you deploy it to your web. Now it's within a desktop application using .NET MAUI. So how exactly is this working? Well, here's what I have. So if I go look at my CLI projects here, I actually have an Angular CLI app, right? And I can run this locally on my browser with like ng-serve, or I can do an ng build with production configuration. And in that case, you get a whatever file or folder you name it, like your distribution or your output folder. This is a deployable Angular app, right? So inside of it is flattened and minified JavaScript and CSS and index HTML and a favicon. All of it is right there, right? So this is what you can actually deploy. So we can actually take all of this and bring it into our MAUI app, right? So let's open this up real quick. And you'll notice here, this is still a MAUI Blazor project, right? It has the Blazor web view. And instead of pointing to a root component of Blazor, I say, don't do that. Instead, I'm going to point you to this index.html, which if you look at my www root folder, which is all of my static assets, this is the index.html that Blazor likes to use because it's bringing in the Blazor web view JS for interop, and it starts up with main.razor. We don't use that. We are instead pointing to this, which is actually the Angular HTML file, right? And this has all the script references. So what I'm trying to say is if you have an Angular project, you can build it and you can shove it inside of a native mobile or desktop app. This is not as nice as Blazor, but it works, right? So for you to talk to .NET, you have to come through a JS interop bridge. That's just the not so fun part, but it works. And I can do more. So let's look at MAUI React, and same exact idea. And I'm going to run this again on a Mac Catalyst, and I can run this on iOS or Android as well. If any of you do React, I don't do any React, but I just, I've looked up the basics. So I think I had it in the cheat sheet here. So it's like npx create React app and then npm start, npm run build. So this run build, again, does the build for you to deploy, and then you get a deployable React app, and then you can shove it inside of a .NET MAUI. So the web view doesn't care. As long as you're giving it any type of web content, it's just happy to render. So all of a sudden, your JavaScript stuff starts running on desktop. Now, this is nothing new. Again, you have been able to do this with PWAs. You've been able to do this with Electron. What is different here is how lightweight this is. And especially if you're bringing in Blazor, then you get some added benefits. So I'm going to do the difficult thing of bringing up a VM. You might see my lights flicker. So when my wife and kid are out throughout the day for school and work, I don't run heat in my home because the whole house is just like it's chilling. But my office is nice and toasty with all the heat. And I have like a big Windows tower under my desk as well, so I don't need to run heat. So while that's coming up, let me show you one more thing here. And if I can remember the name of it here, oh, okay. So what if you have, custom components, just like we saw with Xamarin.Forms? So what if you have custom web components? You might have something of your own, or in this case, I am using something that, of a generic web framework. So this is actually using Kendo UI, which is our, front-end framework. If you have, web apps that you have built with Kendo UI, you can now, bring them into desktop as well. So same Angular app, but you see that barcode, that's a Kendo UI barcode, right? So I can do that fairly easily. And maybe one more example. So let's do, I'm going to forget, what is it called? MAUI React Kendo. Okay, so MAUI React Kendo, and let's do a Mac Catalyst build again. And again, in case you are using Kendo UI React components, and this holds true for your own custom web components or any other frameworks that you are bringing in. It all works because it's all web, and the web view is happy to install. So that's a Kendo React calendar, actually fully functional Kendo UI calendar rendered inside of a desktop. So you can do that. Okay, so back to Blazor and back to Windows, right? So there are some things that are actually nicer when you do Blazor. So I'm going to pull up VS 2022. I'm not running the latest previews, but if you don't see the MAUI, templates, then it means you don't have the right Visual Studio. You need to be on the preview versions, not the existing Visual Studio. I got 8 minutes left. No, actually, I got 10:55. So I got 13 minutes left. Oh, nice. I actually have, I don't have to talk like an auctioneer, but, let me know if you have any questions. Any questions? And I think Bill said he's doing a Blazor talk after this, where he's going to show you more UI. It makes me happy. So this is coming up, and it's the same like Blazor, the chat application with .NET MAUI, but now it's going to run on Windows. And it's going to be a little slow because it's in a VM while I'm screen sharing. Okay, so another .NET MAUI app. So this should be not much of a surprise. I think it's all loaded and good to go. So let's run this without debugging. So at this point, it's spinning up a native Windows app, but it's powered by .NET MAUI, and it the UI is driven by Blazor. But I think in this one, actually, I do a little bit of a mix and match. So you can actually have native UI and Blazor UI all together if that's what you want to do. Build has started. It's finding the right simulator to deploy to, which in this case should be Windows. So it's should be relatively quickly. I haven't apparently opened this project in a while, so it's fetching the NuGet packages and all that stuff. Come on, Visual Studio. Almost done. Build has succeeded, and it's thinking, and come on. There you go. So out comes the Windows app, right? Again, it looks similar to what we saw on Mac. But here, actually, you notice that this label, like that Hello World label, that's actually a native UI. What is nice is I can update that label through that increment button here, but that's actually the same Blazor component that you see here. So I can update, a native label from the Blazor component as well. And I can go to the chat room, and this is the same one. Let's see if my chat room is still up. Felice says hello. Oh, and by the way, you folks can actually join in if you want. Where is my? Oh, there were some questions in the conversation. I will get to them in just a second, folks. Give me a second. So you can chime in as well, and keep it clean. It doesn't have any auth or anything like that. So I can go to this, and I can do Blazor on Windows, said hi, and I can do a send, and it's right there. Go back to the UI. Blazor on Windows says hi. So we're connecting the same app over SignalR, obviously with iOS and. Oh, Brian, so you said hello from Thorndale. You can say hello on that URL if you want to see your message show up. But there's something else on this app that I wanted to show you. You see that button that says do something native? This is code I stole from somebody named Elon Lipton, works on the .NET team, is a veteran. But take a look at this. This is pure Blazor code. I'm writing this in index.razor. Here's using system.io, so straight up Windows IO thing. And I have a message here, which is H3. When you click on that button, it invokes this function here. And what it's doing is creating a temporary file, giving it a temporary file name. And we are writing something to it. It says enter something. And then look at the system diagnostics process start notepad. So we are going out of process here, and we are spinning up notepad. I didn't even know you could do this, but you can from system diagnostics, and then you wait for it to exit, and we read that file back out, right? So here I say do something native, enter something. We can say hello Philly, right? And I'm going to save it, and I'm going to close it. And it comes back as hello Philly, right? So right in there, you see those 4 lines of code. They jump out of process. You're not in the web sandbox anymore. You have access to all types of native APIs from Blazor, and you can do outside of process things, which is really nice, right? So, that's Blazor and MAUI together. Oh, Brian says hello. Yeah, there you go. Now you have the chat room working. Now let's. I got 9 minutes left. Okay, let's show you a few more things. What if you didn't want to do all of this, right? You don't want to, restart a brand new project in .NET MAUI. You have existing projects that you want to maintain on WinForms or, WPF, right? So what do you do in that case? Here I have a WPF project, and I've run the upgrade assistant, and I have, I've changed the runtime to be .NET 6. Now, I don't need to do all of this stuff from MAUI. Essentially, the Blazor Web View renders on, if you're running on Windows, it renders this little thing called WebView 2, which is a runtime by itself. It gives you the latest evergreen browser component from Edge. It's Chromium based, right? So right up here with one NuGet package that I'm bringing in this WebView, in my main window.xaml, in my WPF code, I can just render a WebView, and I'm pointing it to a URL. So let me go ahead and run this real quick. And out comes the WPF app. This is a native Windows app, right? But it doesn't look like anything Windows because this is a website. So this might be the lowest hanging fruit. Like if you have an internal and a business app that's a web app, or if you have an external facing app, you can just like give it the URL and just call it a day, and it'll render all of the web stuff just fine. That's through WebView. But it's, again, this is not the reality for lots of folks. Maybe you actually want to build a Blazor app inside of your WPF app, so you can do that as well. So let me show you Blazor WebView. So in here, I have brought in, the same WebView component, but here I think, if I look at my XAML, this is actually using the Blazor WebView. And notice how it's pointing to a local component called counter, which is sitting right there on my code base. So it's a WPF app, but it actually has Blazor components right in there. So that's my counter right there. So I can do this, and I can run this. Let's do that. I think what I've done is, on this app, I have stripped away all, CSS, all JavaScript. It's got nothing in there. So it doesn't look like Blazor, it doesn't look like web. And if I didn't tell you, you would not know that that's a native web component that's driving that counter, right? So you can absolutely mix and match, Blazor with WPF apps. And one more thing to show you before 10:48. One last thing to show, and then I'll stop. I'll answer any questions you might have. One other question is, if you have custom components like we talked about for Xamarin.Forms, for Angular, for React, what if you have excuse me, something built in for Blazor? Or if you're using like another component, in this case, it's let's say you're using a Telerik component, right? So that's a barcode right in there, but this is all in index.razor. So this is a MAUI project, but I can reference the same, Blazor DLLs, and I can, as long as I have the references right, I can render this all day long. So let's go ahead and run this real quick. It's a .NET MAUI app, but it's rendering, a custom component inside of the web view. And actually, while that's coming up, let me show you one other website. Eric says, hey, hello. One other website here I wanted to point to is, let's see, this one. Yeah, so our engineering teams have they were tinkering with this, late last year. This repo is now, open, so you can. It's not private anymore, so you can take a look. This is all of our Blazor UI, calendars and charts and graphs inside of a MAUI app, inside of like a WinForms application, inside of like a WPF app. So essentially this kind of breathes a little bit of fresh life into your desktop application. So here's that barcode that I showed you inside of a MAUI app, right? So any type of custom component should be welcome inside of .NET MAUI, and it's just a way for you to consider having something modern in your existing native mobile or your desktop application, right? So hopefully this makes sense. I don't think I have anything else. Oh, I have a bunch of things running which I should probably kill. Hold on for a second. Okay, I killed that. And what else? No, that's it. That's all I had. So let's see what questions you might have. So by the way, thank you for spending an half an hour or 55 minutes with me. I'm looking through the comments here, but feel free, folks, just turn on your microphone and ask. Suresh, oh, actually, let's see. That's the starting of the chat. Suresh was asking, any controls readily available like Syncfusion DevExpress to integrate with MAUI? Yeah, well, of course. I'm not going to be the bad person stopping you, but please go look around and get the right UI. Yes, and Syncfusion DevExpress all have UI, and as do we. So if I show you what we have, it's like if you count every calendar then or every chart, then it's like over 30, but by default it's like about 20 or so. So yeah, this is all free for you to kind of try around. So we have UI for MAUI, and this is kind of key for everybody. Everybody who's building UI, this is kind of key. You see that where is it? You see that data grid in there? For the first time, you have a data grid from us that works on mobile and desktop, and that is not a small engineering thing to pull off, is what I can say. So yes, there's a lot of help. Eric is asking, so is there any reason to use Blazor WebAssembly with MAUI? Oh, Eric, that's a great question. So everything that you saw with Blazor inside of MAUI, that's actually not WebAssembly at all. It's I mean, there is no client and server. I mean, everything is kind of jammed in together. So what you're seeing, the model is essentially Blazor server side, but you can do everything client side because the client is right there. So there is no WebAssembly. And there is no Node.js, so you cannot like spin up a Node.js server inside of .NET MAUI, if that makes sense. Brian is asking, are there any examples that will available to look at on GitHub? Yeah, well, start with a lot of the the MAUI getting started guides right here, and then on GitHub, if you go look, I think I have most of my code samples up there. Look for me. I think I have most of these things up on my GitHub if you want to play around. And if you miss something, please ping me. That's me on Twitter. I am quite chatty, so yeah, please tell me. Yeah. Okay, look at that. I actually finished in on time. I'm always rushing and always struggling to finish, but I did it. And thank you, for spending an hour with me. I hope I have made Bill happy, Bill and Chris and everybody. Thanks for putting together Philly Code Camp. This is great. Looking forward to attending a few sessions myself and taking it all in. So take care, please. The world is kind of in a weird place. Any type of military conflict is undesirable. So like I said, hopefully humanity and common sense returns and we can all move forward. Yeah, Brian, thank you for everyone. Okay.
Great job, Sam.
Oh, thank you, Bill. I'll lurk when you are speaking. All right, folks, that's it from me.